Hey, welcome back to another couple segment in the Saucy Marriage Weekend. Y'all, I'm super excited. I always get excited about these segments because I know that our stories as married folk and as couples are so impactful and so important. It's really important that we hear each other's stories, that we have that impact on each other, that we know we're not alone, because it gets real out here in these streets, and especially out here in these new normal pandemic streets. So I'm excited to have the Makins here with me, and they are actually celebrating or coming off of celebrating a year of marriage, which I think is so 1 year. Yes. Put your ones up. Join me in celebrating that with them at the time of recording this. So it'll be a little more than that when the Saucy Marriage Weekend launches. But join me in just saying congratulations in 1 year down in the comments below, y'all. You guys have always been a really funny, fun, dynamic couple. Since I have been connected, yes, you're claiming the funny. It's claiming the funny. But every comedic duo has the funny one and then the straight man, and that's what really makes it funny. So it's a partnership. Right? But I think you guys are just amazing individually, and I love you together as well. And so I just want to kick it to you to add anything to the mix, to introduce yourself, to tell us a little bit about your family dynamic as it stands now. What's what?
As you said, we are just fresh of a year of marriage. Um, we are a blended family. We have total of 4 kids.
Four. Oh,
It sounds like a
Four
question
kids.
mark. For how many kids?
No, it's just like wow, it's a lot of kids. But yeah, and we just love them all.
yeah. She came in with two. I came in with one, and we have one together, who's
10 months.
10 months old.
10 months.
Just turned 10 months.
Aw, I love it. That in and of itself is a transition, I'm sure, even with having the baby in the midst of everything that was happening and going down this year. Life still goes on, a lot of things still happen in this divine pause that we've had, that is 2020 and now 2021. But a lot of times when we're dealing in relationship and coupledom, we find ourselves at an impasse, feeling very, not to say disconnected, but let's say different, right? That the differences start to really pop up. Like, this is what I think, this is how I roll, this is how I communicate, this is how you communicate, this is the goals that I have for my life, this is the goals that you apparently have, and the goals aren't matching up. And we find that can be a space of conflict. It can be a space of discord. And because I'm seeing the journey that you guys have been on, we know where you are now, but people want to know, like, how did you get here? So when you look on the breadth of your story and where you guys started, how did you guys, before we even get to the possible discord, how did you guys start? Where does your story start?
In a nightclub.
The best place, all the greats start at a nightclub.
Yeah, we had mutual friends that we didn't know we had, and we were both invited out to an event that was thrown, and I saw her, and I was like, mine.
Yeah, it was definitely an instant connection that first time that we saw each other.
But I'm bad on picking up cues, so it was a little extended
courtship.
Yeah.
So
Well,
basically,
our first meeting was extended.
Ah. So basically, you're a rom-com movie. That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
Basically.
It's true. You've seen enough of them. That's cute. I love it.
Goodness.
I love.
Yeah, we are.
I mean, at least that description of the start of things. So you meet, and we all know how it is when we meet. Well, everybody's different, actually. I've known some people that meet and they're like, It took a while to get to the point where they were like, yes. But you guys were yes instantly off the bat. And so you're getting into your relationship, you have the honeymoon phase, you're enjoying each other's company. What was a point where you were like, okay, we're together, we love each other, but something is feeling off or something's feeling like it's missing?
We got to take it back
Okay.
for that first,
Yeah.
because initially we weren't supposed to be getting in a relationship.
Oh.
I had just came off something serious. She had been out of a serious relationship, so we were both like, yeah, we just gonna kick it. And like the
Oh.
first time we hung out, I was like, I had she had said something, and I texted her. I was like, I bet you won't come over, and she was like, oh, whatever, and she came over. I was like, oh, okay. She bowed it. Okay. She called my bluff, and we just started hanging out, and everything else just started to phase out. Like
Mm.
it went from us hanging with our mutual friends as much to just our mutual friends like, where y'all at? Y'all
Yeah, you guys were that couple where your friends were like, they've gone missing. They must be in WITSEC or something because I haven't heard from them. Okay. It's okay. That's that love. Yeah. Yeah.
like
Olivia's like, I thought she was gonna say, it's like, no comment, Olivia.
I mean, that's how it happened. Like we were trying to fight it, but we end up just like growing feelings for each other. And I remember us having a conversation. It was like, this is not where this was supposed to go. But it was just like, we here now, so let's see where it goes.
Backtrack. So I get the backtrack that you were kind of in a phase of like, oh, we were just gonna kick it. We just came out of something serious, but you did have the connection initially, and you were kicking it. And you decided, okay, we're really gonna kick it, and then all your friends got forsaken. And it was just you two. And how did the relationship progress? I mean,
We just started spending more time together because at first it was just like we'll see each other on weekends, and then that progressed to us spending weeks together, and then us moving in together and looking for a house. Like it just kind of snowballed.
yeah, like
mm,
we when it started getting serious, we had a conversation about like because at that point we hadn't met each other's kids,
yeah,
and it was like, okay, so if we're gonna do this, we got to do it right. We got to make sure that everything is on track. So she introduced me to her kids. I introduced her to my son, and everything still clicked. So we was like, okay, yeah, we good.
yeah. Well, what's okay, because you said we were kicking it for a few weeks and then we were looking for a house. And I'm like, oh, wait, pause the tape and rewind. How?
No,
Yeah, she went a long way.
I know, I was
I
like,
said it
wait, so 6 weeks
snowballed like
after.
transition.
Yeah.
So we talked. We were in the talking phase for like 4 or 5 months because when we first met, she was still doing her solo thing. She was going on trips with her friends, her mom, and she was out of town. She was going to go see her brother in Cali, and like she was always gone. So it was like a long distance relationship for the most part.
Mm,
And then around, I want to say early August, like she got back and she started. I think she started going back to work or something.
Hmm.
So she couldn't spend those weekends the same way that she was.
yeah.
So we were like, okay. I started coming over during the week, but we hadn't met each other's kids, so it was like she would. I would come
Gotta
over during the
go.
week after the kids were asleep and be gone before they woke up, or I just had to
Yeah.
hide in the room until they left.
Oh man. Well, when did you guys decide? Because I think that's a really key thing with couples. And even as those of you, I know you're married, but you're thinking about, okay, when did we decide for those blended families out there? When did you decide, and what made you decide it was the right time or a good time to introduce your kids into the mix?
Um,
It was
for
good. Good.
Okay. For me, I had to see that our relationship was going to progress to something serious because I remember telling him like I wasn't going to introduce somebody to my kids unless it was going to be serious, like
Right.
unless we are going to do this long term.
Right.
And I think once we had established that in our relationship, then I was like, okay, maybe we can like do random meetups and see how everything goes. And they just immediately took to him.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the deciding factors because I think it's important to pay attention to how your kids feel.
Yeah.
And once I saw that they were like, oh, we like him, we love him. And I was like, okay, well, let's do this.
That helps. Yeah. And I think
Well,
I think that's a really important thing for blended families is to you're considering your kids' feelings, but you're also trying to be like, well, I'm really feeling this person. How do you navigate that and just being communicative, hopefully, with the kids around what that is. And I'm sure
Mhm.
you were. So that's great that he grabbed it because everybody doesn't have that experience where they're immediately like, oh, I like this person because kids have their own, stuff. They can be wrapped into their own stuff. So what about for you, Antonio?
for me, it was a little more complicated. Just had to like wait a little bit while longer. But when she met him, like I took him to it wasn't Get Air. It was
I was like hippity something.
no, it's something else air.
Catcher?
Catch Air
Mm.
for like the little kid.
Yeah, yeah.
So went to Catch Air. She came with me. She met me up there, and I slowly just like saw how he vibed with her. Like we were playing table hockey, and like she helped him, and like he gravitated towards. He like was playing with her and talking to her, and wasn't running away from her. So I was like, okay, he likes
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'm glad that the kids were. I don't think I've ever heard that, so I'm glad that part of you guys' story. But I'm glad that the kids gravitated towards that because obviously you guys' relationship progressed. You eventually did move in, together. You're building a life. You're building a family. At what point did the differences that you were seeing in each other or feeling like being, what we can get into like being who you are, that was who each of you were starting to what did you notice when you guys was it before you moved in that you noticed some things? Was it after?
No, we moved in pretty quick,
Okay.
to be honest.
Yeah.
Like we moved in together before a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, but we ended up renting a house, and it wasn't so much our differences; it was more the pressure from everybody else on the outside that started to get to
Mm,
both of us, and that pressure just magnified everything, the differences that we already had.
yeah.
Like we had understood each other's differences. We understood how each other thought for the most part, but it just seemed so much worse when you got this person and that person and that person. Oh, y'all ain't married. Oh, y'all been together how long? Oh, y'all having kids. Oh, I don't see no ring on her finger. And it's like
Mm,
that just adds up and then along with, I think at the time we were going to a lot of marriages. We went
yeah.
to not marriages but
Wedding.
weddings. We went to like 4 weddings in 6 months,
Mhm.
and two of them I caught the garter, and two of them she caught the bouquet.
Wow.
So it was just, and
Okay.
then like, as soon as you catch, it's like, oh, they're next, and
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, so y'all gonna start playing, and it's like we're both like we both know we're not at that level yet,
Yeah.
but trying to, I guess, say defend what we're doing
Yeah.
just got old, and it just put pressure on us, and
Yeah.
everything just became like everything just became an arguing point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very complicated. And I think we were also more defensive on how each other was feeling, not how the other was feeling. Like we were more focused on self.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was because that's a big point of struggle that I know folks can relate to, even because you guys are newlyweds, we're kind of leading into your story of getting married and making that decision and what that first year of marriage has been like for you. But even for those who have been married for a while, I feel like there's relatability in that, right? When other people are in your ear and having to discern, okay, this is my voice and this is somebody else's voice, because sometimes those things get muddy and their expectations become like your expectations or your doubts, and you're constantly in your head about it, but you don't live with these people that are in your ear. You're living with you're living with your partner, and so
Yeah.
they're getting the brunt of it and you're feeling the brunt of it as well. So I feel like that's a really relatable thing even now for folks, who are married, for you guys and other folks who are listening. What kind of boundary lines do you set with other people, close friends, family, people you love and value their opinion? How well, you still have to set certain boundaries and decide that this is us, right? So I think that's a really important thing to kind of pull out from what you guys are saying, even in as you're discovering this for yourself. And so your people are in your ear, and there's all this pressure and expectation that you're going to take this step that you're not yet ready to take. And what was the kind of a breaking point for you guys, at a point where you're just kind of looking at each other? And because this is hindsight, you might not have realized the other people's stuff at the time, but what was that point for you that created maybe some struggle initially? You're like, we can't remember the struggle times.
For me, it was like when everything became an argument. Like even just simple stuff of um getting something to eat, or a simple miscommunication that turned into a screaming match. And it was like, for me, I was like, I don't, I don't like confrontation. As far
Mhm.
I can deal with it, but I don't like it.
Right.
Especially, I don't like being yelled at. So it just got to a point where I was being told how I was feeling, and I wouldn't been listened to when I was telling how I felt.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just that point when it was like, we're not in a relationship. It's just a long term debate.
Mm. It's okay, Olivia. We talk
Yeah.
talk about the past. You guys have come through. I
Like
get it. I
who
talk
the
My
hell?
husband and I talk about, our stuff too, so I definitely I get it. But it's real. If we can acknowledge where
Yeah.
we were, we can also see where we've come to. So, and this is important for other people because you're being honest about that dynamic and that feeling. And we definitely gonna hit up your perspective, Olivia. But I'm just curious for you, Antonio, what what happens when you you start feeling that way? Like how do you now respond differently? How are you acting differently? How are you contributing to the dynamic in the relationship differently?
I used to be the way I dealt. It used to be the way I dealt with it was I'm I just close off a little bit, and everything I just become real nonchalant.
Yeah.
And in our relationship, I knew that got to her.
Yeah. It's frustrating as
So
hell. Yeah. Mhm.
so when she would start coming at me, or I felt when I felt like she wasn't listening to me, I just became real nonchalant. I shrugged everything off, and I was like, I'm not gonna deal with it then.
Right.
If my feelings aren't being considered, I'm not gonna show you that yours matter either. Even though they
Right.
did, but it's like I felt like mine wasn't.
Right.
But now it's easier to communicate because we have more tools. We're able to like have those conversations. Even when they're hard, we're able to have those conversations and listen to each other
Right. Right.
instead of thinking about what I'm saying or thinking what I'm about to say. It's like, okay, focus on what she's saying.
Whew. But from yeah, I know it's, sometimes when they talk, I'm like, oh, okay, that's how you felt. But from your perspective, I mean, you're the other person in this relationship. So what was happening for you in those moments? What was the point of struggle that you were feeling in the relationship?
For me, one thing that I felt like was our part of our foundation was like our instant like chemistry. I always called it like our vibe. And so during that time, like our vibe was just off.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't even crack jokes and stuff, couldn't play, couldn't have regular conversation, weren't like having fun watching TV together. It was just off.
Yeah.
It was just completely off. What'd you say?
Hmm.
It was just off. And so that was something that got to me is because like our communication wasn't there. And I also felt like we weren't working on our relationship. We were just, I guess, just living day by day.
Yeah, it is what it
Like,
is.
yeah, it just kind of is what it is. We weren't like working on it. We weren't really trying to um, better our relationship. Like I said, we were just about self.
Yeah. I think that's hard, the playfulness, when that starts to drain from the relationship because of other parts, especially when you're used to being playful and having fun. I have couples I talk to like, I just I just want to have fun. Like I want it to be easier. I just want to
Yeah,
enjoy your company. And there's these blocks that happen and it's real in our marriages where we're not feeling that, where it's not fun. And if you are watching something, it's those moments like, okay, you on a chair and I'm on the couch, or we're on opposite ends of the couch and we're watching the same thing. We're thinking things in our head, but we're not connecting. We're not really in a state of playfulness and enjoyment. And it's rough. And even when you're married, the ebb and flow, even when you get married, not you, but general you get married, that ebb and flow, it happens. You have those moments, those seasons, those things where it just doesn't feel very fun. And so I think it's important for us to have playfulness, for us to enjoy each other's company, for us to be friends, but there are real things that make that challenging. And so how long can that dynamic really sustain itself in the relationship before you say, okay, look, something's got to give, A, B, gonna happen? Because I see a lot of times folks stay in a certain rhythm for a while, even if they're not happy with that rhythm.
For us, it went on for about maybe a year because I went from like summer to summer. No, yeah, summer to summer. And then after that summer, everything just started like going downhill. It just started being too much. And like at one point, we weren't together
Yeah.
for
2 points.
yeah 2 points,
That's it happens.
which
Yeah.
was ironic for me
Yeah.
because first time I was like, I think I came to her, I was like, I think we should just take a break. I need to
Yeah.
get myself together. You need to get some stuff together. And and her comment to me was like, if we do that, we're not going to be back together. I was
Mm,
like, I was like, why not? I was like, we can't take some time to like gather ourselves. She's
right.
like, no. She was like, no, you can't.
Mm,
I felt like at that time, I felt like it was more of a scapegoat type thing. Like, if you just want to end it, just say you want to end it. Don't be like, we should take
take
a
a
break.
break. Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm not going to put my life on hold. Like, things are going to continue to happen. So, if you want to take a break, we're just not going to be together.
Right.
But but for me, it was a legitimate break. It was like I need to gather myself. I need to recharge because it's like that previous year was like draining. It was
Yeah.
taking all the emotion out of me. It was taking all the energy out of me.
Yeah.
So I felt like I need to take like 30, 60 days and just recharge and get my mind back to how I know I am, the person
Yeah.
I know knew I was.
Yeah. How does that work in the same house though? Do you say, okay, I'm gonna stay at a friend's house for 3 months, or 2 or 3 months?
So my plan originally was I was just going to be a grifter, not a grifter, a drifter.
I think a
Basically,
grifter is a con artist. So
yeah,
that that's a plan, you know.
yeah. Like previous to
Ah,
this, I had become real infatuated with these camper vans where people were
Mm,
buying cargo vans and basically turned into a tiny house on wheels.
mm,
So I was like, okay, I'll be here for 30 days. You need anything, I'm still here.
Yeah.
But after that 30 days, well, for this 30 days, I'm trying to get money together, get myself together so that I can go ahead and get this camper van and just get myself back together.
Right.
That was a stamp for no, not approved.
Mm-hmm.
You have not been approved for that long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That
And
my PTO was denied.
but what's important about that piece, I mean, many things, but in terms of the communication is that a lot of things can be misconstrued when we say things that can mean something else. Like, oh, I need a break. Now, if you just said I need a break, yeah, then what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Either we broken, what's a break? But to say, hey, I want this break for the purpose of X, Y, even in the midst of all that you guys were going through, even if it wasn't received at that time because of everything that was happening, it's still a good practice. You know what I'm saying? So I think we as couples, when we come and we think we're so clear about what we're communicating to the other one, and they're like, they take it to another place that we weren't intending, we have to check ourselves and say, well, okay, did we say what this was really about? Did we purposefully and clearly articulate ourselves? And even in the midst of that, to say, this is why I'm doing this, it's a really important thing for us all to take in and to remember around how do we communicate with our spouses. So
Now,
I'm here for that.
now, in my defense, it was communicated,
I'm saying it sounds like it was.
but the belief
Yeah.
in the communication wasn't there. It
Right.
was like, yeah, you saying this,
Right.
but you just trying to go mess with other girls.
Right.
It wasn't all about other girls.
That wasn't the only thing I was saying, but like, no matter what I said, it was like, no.
Yeah.
But we were in the midst of about to take a break, and then she was like, no. And then maybe a month later, she was like, I think we should take a break. And I was like, what?
Mm-hmm. Needed some time to process that, maybe a little bit more, 30
No,
days.
I didn't use the word break. I said I don't think we should be together.
Yeah, see,
Okay.
hers was
Definitive.
different.
Okay.
Hers was a breakup.
Yeah, and I'm hearing also possibly, Olivia, speak to this, reliability issues, like, hey, questioning, can I rely on this person? If you want to break, where was a sense of kind of security and reliability at stake for you at this moment? You can tell me I'm wrong. I'm not trying to put words into your mouth, but that's what I'm hearing.
No, definitely. At that time, because really, like, you grow with this person, you think that you can depend on them, and then you hit a rough patch, and now, from my point of view, it's like, oh yeah, I need a break. We need to just chill, and I'm like, okay. So as we were trying to make it work, it wasn't working.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, maybe he's right. Maybe we should have just ended it. But I'm like, we ain't gonna take no break. We just gonna be done.
Mm-hmm.
We're just gonna end it because I'm like, had to, like, rebuilding that trust and the, what's the word I'm looking for? That dependability, yeah.
Yeah. And
Needed
security.
to be there. And I at that time I wasn't feeling any of it.
Right.
I just felt like all of that time that we invested into the relationship can be over like that.
Yeah. And was that even I get the rough season, right? I feel like we can all relate to it. Was that even what you wanted, right? Or did you just feel like we have to do this because you were tired? But is that what you really wanted?
To break up, no. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that I did at that time. I'm like, I don't know how we can make this work. We just need to cut ties now. But as I think I went on a trip with my mom after we had, I guess we had broken up for like a month or so.
After she broke up with me, after she gave my 30-day notice,
I went on a trip with my mom, and just talking with her and just being away had me doing like more soul searching and things like that. And I knew a lot of that was rooted in fear I
Yeah.
knew just taking accountability for my actions. Like I wasn't doing my part in our relationship. I wasn't giving him um, his like meeting his emotional needs and things like that. Like listening to him, caring about how
Yeah.
he's feeling. There's a lot of things on my part that I wasn't doing, and then
Right.
I know that I didn't fight for our relationship like that.
Mm,
I didn't do what I needed to do to make sure that it survived.
right.
So after soul searching, I'm like, and I know nobody has ever made me feel like he does. So it was just like something that I wanted to fight for. And I remember
Yeah.
coming back from that trip, we had like a serious talk.
Okay.
Long.
Yeah.
Okay. So bring me to that point because you've decided to part ways. You realize that's not what you want, which is great because we're talking about leading up to the marriage because I know the work that you guys done in your marriage, and this was like a lot of the meat that moved into you guys deciding, hey, we're ready now, despite all the folk before to get married. But the equivalent to that often in a marriage is folks throwing around divorce, like, for reasons of they don't want it. It's just, I don't want this like this. So we're about to part
Right.
ways. And we have to really be honest with ourselves in those moments where we want to say that we want to, look up lawyers and print out the papers and do all the things. Are we really leaning into what it is that we want? Are we really in a space where we have looked at ourselves and asked ourselves what we contributed to the situation? Or are we having that visceral emotional reaction to what our current situation is in the marriage? So I think that's a really important thing to reflect on. So you guys get to this point and you're having this conversation and the tides then turn, we're back together, or how does that okay.
Like with that conversation, the conversation was a lot of information for both of us, but we still hadn't decided if we were going to be back together. It was
Mm,
like we want to,
yeah.
but is it worth it? Can we actually be together,
Mm,
and be both of us be happy?
yeah.
Because for me, I think like we had to talk, but she still had a mentality of, because I think we had a conversation about marriage even after that, and her statement was like, if you really wanted to marry me, you would just do
Mm,
it. And for me, I was like, we literally aren't even together again.
We were.
We were talking.
Mm.
Well,
Beforehand. We had did like a recommitment.
yeah, we did a recommitment, but it still was like
It was
the
fresh.
deal was we weren't going to be together unless we talked to somebody.
yeah. Okay. So that
So
was the answer to that question of how do we make us work? We know we have the desire. Okay, so now we're in a space to do what some folks are nervous about doing, to bring somebody else into the fold.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was I think when we had talked, it was like either we were going to call it quits or we were going to see someone and see if this was worth saving.
Yeah. I think that's an important distinction. A lot of people don't even have that discussion, or when they do, one partner's on board and one partner isn't. Now, when you had that conversation, were both of you at the time on board with going to get guidance and support around your relationship? That's
yeah,
Yeah.
we were both on board. Like the hard part at this point was just finding the right person, because I
okay.
had contacted a couple of people, and some of them just weren't the right fit, and then
Right.
others were just, I don't know. It just, I didn't gravitate to anything they were saying.
Okay. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that happens. But again, you didn't say, "Oh, that didn't work. We're done." And which people do. They'll contact a couple people and then say, "Okay, that didn't work." As opposed to, it's like finding the right partner. You do have to kind of search and find out what and who is going to work for you. So that's a really intentional step. And I guess because you're at a crossroads, you decide that's what's going to happen. My question then, in the midst of being able to talk to somebody and getting professional guidance, which is very different than the friends and family that speak into your relationship. What did you learn about yourselves that really started to solidify you guys as a couple, your communication, etc.?
For me, what I learned is we weren't as different as we thought we were.
Mm.
That's what I learned the most.
Yeah.
Like,
In in what way?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
So yeah, I asked the questions that the folks are thinking. So in what ways did you see those similarities pop up?
like we had the same values of family. We had the same values of like financial freedom and financial literacy. We had the same values on so much stuff. The stuff that because I felt like she found a lot of uh, differences, but they were so superficial.
Mm,
Like,
Yeah.
well, you like sports, and I don't like sports at all.
mm,
Or and you like watching funny movie, more funny movies than I like watching dramas, or I like watching reality TV.
mhm,
Like it was all superficial,
mhm.
but it was magnified because it was just a reason to highlight a difference.
Yeah,
So for me, like just talking and getting professional help, it was like we aren't that different. Like we
right.
want the same thing. We want the same thing for our family. We want the same thing for our marriage. We want the same thing for our future.
The big stuff.
Yes.
The big stuff, the stuff that actually matters.
Yes, that core stuff, the values and the goals and the visions. Even if you have different methodology on how to get there, it's okay. You can work through that, but just moving through the vision together, that's good. That's good. What about for you, Olivia? What did you learn about yourself that was a turning point for you?
Um, for me, I think was knowing intentions. I think
Mm,
knowing that I already know what my intentions were, but hearing and believing what his intentions were.
mm,
That like we can be a partnership and that we can do things together versus me feeling like I'm doing it by myself or that he's not in it all the way.
right. Right.
So I think that was a turning point of me like really letting all of my guard down and being vulnerable
Yeah.
to this man to accept his love and his willingness to be my partner. I think that
Mm,
was the biggest thing for me.
yes. And then you decided to get married. What was, because it didn't happen before, right? So even though you moved in together, the kids had met, you when you decided to get married, how did you know at that point this was right for you guys? Not because anybody else said it, but for you.
For me, I had already decided that I wanted to marry her like months before even proposing.
Yeah.
But it was just a matter of me wanting to do it right
Yeah.
and make sure that like everything was special and everything was memorable, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Mhm.
But even in that, we had some differences because that mentality I talked about earlier
Yeah.
hadn't dissipated from her yet.
Yeah.
Am I lying?
Yeah, I feel like it was just a different time. Like, I guess for me, still focusing on things that didn't mean as much.
Yeah.
Um, like mostly instead of looking at the big picture, like focusing on the little tidbits of stuff.
Yeah. And the irony is that can be a strength in a marriage, right? The person who is maybe more big picture oriented and the person who's more detailed oriented usually work really well together. But there are moments in time where we can use those factors and lean into those factors as a point of conflict when really they're a strength that we can lean into. But with every strength, there's the shadow and the light, right? And what do we lean into in that moment? So in that moment, it was leaning into it in a way that felt more shadowy. But obviously in recognizing how you guys work together, you could see the light and lean more into the light of if when there are differences, that there are differences that feel compatible, right? That you can navigate together. So, and I get that. And that's a great thing to recognize about yourself that, all right, what really matters here, and why am I focusing on the things that seem trivial at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. So you guys, for you, Olivia, how did you know, like you were going to say, yeah, y'all been through some things. You were like, I'm ready to be with this man forever, ever.
I think when our vibe just got back, like in tune, like us really being in tune with each other. And I remember telling him, like, I feel more connected now than we did when we were in our, like, we call it our bubble, like when we first got together, where we were like, nobody else, it was just us.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, I feel like we're more in tune with each other than we were then. Like, I feel like our relationship had evolved.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I knew I was like, that I was ready. Like, I can actually, like, I always picture us being married, but now I knew that we were ready to get married.
Right. And when you look at your marriage, a lot of people, the reason why I started here, because folks will be married at different points here, right? A year, 2 years, 10 years, 14 years. We can all relate and we can glean different things from each other, see ourselves in each other, no matter how long. Trust, I've I've talked to couples who have been married a year, and I've talked to couples who been married 10 years, and they are going through the same stuff, right? So when you guys moved into your marriage, how did everything that you were taking with you affect this first year of marriage, this beginning and this first year and this journey that you started together as a married couple?
Not to be cocky, not to be anything about anybody else's relationship, but the fact that we survived our first year of marriage and this is one of our best years like together during a pandemic.
Come on now,
that
talk about it.
that I feel like that like our first year, it really can't get harder than that. Like everything was thrown at us within that first year. Like she was pregnant, we had a baby, she quit her job, I started a new job,
Homeschooling kids.
Just the change of dynamic in the household.
Yeah.
Not being able to travel and do the things that we normally would.
Yeah.
It was so many different changes that we were able to tackle and be able to deal with in our first year that I feel like any year after, we already have the tools. We already been through that. Remember we did this? This ain't nothing. So like everything else is
everything
as far
else is
as problems, everything else is like on a lower level.
Yeah. And that because I know you two, I can say like the way that you tackled those transitions, people are like, wait, you had a baby, the pandemic, didn't that cause a rift? But I know, and this is also where I started, why I started where I did. I know you guys tackled that in a certain way because you guys did come to it differently than you probably would have had it been like 5 years ago, Antonio and Olivia trying to move through the look at the wide eyes. You just had a moment where you're like, if 5 years ago, Olivia, right?
Would have been totally different.
Totally different. But you guys were able to tackle the transition, right? So in terms of the transitions or the change that you're going through in this first year of marriage, what was the biggest struggle and how did you move through it?
I don't feel like we really had a struggle. Because once we did everything before we got married, as far as like working on ourselves, working on relationship. When we got married, it was just like it was continued. It was like we were a team. It was just team us.
Yeah.
So we were able to, no matter what came up, we were able to communicate and it just wasn't. Oh well, I'll figure out a way to do it. It was like, yo, babe, how we gonna do this? How we gonna do that? How we gonna do this?
Yeah.
And with us approaching every problem like that, nothing got too big.
That's a quotable. Go ahead, Olivia. We're listening.
I was gonna say, it was little stuff like us navigating like this new parenthood together, and just like little things like us not being able to spend time together as we were used to.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it was just like, all right, I'm seeing this problem arise. Like, how are we gonna tackle it? Or, I need help with this. I need your help with this. Like being more teammates, basically. Like,
yeah,
hey, I'm struggling on this side.
Yeah,
I need your help.
No more sweeping under the rug.
Yeah. I think honestly the biggest problem that we had was just scheduling.
Yeah.
Like, because with my job, I was waking up. Well, I'm still waking up 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And with a newborn who she sleeps when she feels like it. Sometimes we can't sleep in the same room.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'm not able to take care of the baby as much or give her as much attention because I'm either on the way from work or on the way to work.
Yeah. And how did you move through that? Or how did you start to move through that?
We sat down and we talked about it beforehand. Like when I got my schedule, I was like, yo, this is my schedule. How do you want to do it? How can we do it? I can't change my schedule right now.
Yeah.
It's still new. Let's put some stuff on the table, see how we're going to be successful with this. And that's what we did. We came up with ideas. We came up with schedules. That some of them worked, some of them didn't. We just go back.
Yeah, absolutely. Trial and error. If it doesn't work, this is an opportunity to tweak it. But you've got to at least do something and try something differently than you already done. And a lot of folks in the relationship will just stay in the status quo. And it seems simple, but it's not easy to do. It's not easy to wrap your head around when you're in the midst of it. But like you guys said, you guys went through it, kind of gathered the tools and decided and were intentional about moving that through into your marriage. And so what kind of last words do you have for folk? And yes, married a year, we've all got wisdom to share. And that's something that I wholeheartedly believe. So in terms of what your sauce is, what do you want to impart to people about them having a relationship where, like you said, nothing gets too big?
Do the work.
All right.
And that's as simple as I can get. Like, we've only been married a year, but we've been together 6 years.
Right.
So we've had time to learn each other and know each other's like pet peeves and ticks and happy. I know if she's feeling some type of way, if it ain't got nothing to do with me, if I give her some crispy fries, she'll be good.
I'm here for that. I
get it. I'm serious. Like,
I need some
it's just knowing those little things that can cut a small problem that can turn big, and they can keep nip it in the bud before it gets anywhere.
Right. Absolutely.
Because early in a relationship, it would be, oh, here she go with this attitude again. Got to deal with this crap tonight. Now it's like, you feeling some type of way?
The expression she has when you say stuff she's like, really?
Ooh, goodness gracious.
Is that how you really felt?
Really though, like I'm out here just waving all the attitude everywhere.
She knows she was at first. Early on.
I never really thought I had an attitude.
She had an attitude, and her attitude towards her attitude was like, so what? I got an attitude. Deal with it. It's me.
We have evolved. It's all right. We all evolved.
Now I know. But now I know if I be like, baby, you okay? She'd be like, I'm fine. Well, DoorDash, fries. This would be good in 30 minutes.
That's good. That's good. But I heard you. Do the work. Be intentional. Stay aware of what's happening in your relationship, which you guys talked about early on, about kind of the awareness that you lacked and that you gained at different points in your relationship. What about for you, Olivia? What would your words be to the people?
Um, they don't say communication is key for nothing.
Yeah.
Like it really is. I feel like that was like one of the turning points in our relationship because we were able to communicate effectively with each
Yeah.
other. Um, whether it was we needed to talk about how we were feeling, or we needed to talk about our days from work, our goals, our ambitions, whatever it was, we were able to communicate it in a way that the partner could receive. And
Yes.
I think that led it led a way for us to be more vulnerable with each other, to always show respect with each other, and to grow in love. Like
Yes.
communication was the main thing that definitely helped our relationship, like how we talk to each other.
Yeah. Or how you don't talk to each other.
Yeah, nonverbal is communication too.
Indeed, it is. You know, I'm here for that. That's my whole jam bread and butter. So I'm here for that. And I love it. I want to thank you both so much for taking time away from your family to get on the couch to share your story, the struggles and what you guys learned. I know that it's going to be helpful to the folks who are listening as you are working to find your sauce and what that looks like for you in your marriage and elevation from where you are right now. Where are you right now? How do you move forward? So, this was awesome. Thank you, Makins, for your time. Thank you for joining me. Thank all of you for listening. We are still moving on this train. I'm going to see you all on the next segment. And yeah, stay tuned, you guys.